All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're going to talk about something that affects pretty much all of us online, this idea of anonymized data. We're told our information is safe once it's been anonymized, but is that actually true, or is it just a digital illusion? Let's find out.
So let's just put the question right out there. When a company tells you your data is anonymous, can you really believe it's private? I mean, think about all the apps and services you use. This one promise is what the entire modern data economy is built on. But as we're about to see, that promise, it might just be a comforting fiction.
Okay, so what is anonymization anyway? Well, in theory, it's pretty simple. A company takes all this data they have on you and they just scrub out the obvious stuff. Your name, your address, the things that scream, this is you. The whole point is to keep the useful bits of information without tying it directly back to a person. So instead of John Smith bought a coffee at 9 a.m., they just see user number 1234 bought a coffee at 9 a.m. Seems safe enough, right? But why not just delete the data if privacy is the goal? Well, this slide nails the reason. For a company, deletion is a total blackout. Poof, the data's gone, useless. But anonymization, that's more like a dimmer switch. You just dim the lights enough that you can't see faces clearly, but you can still see everything that's happening in the room. They get to keep using all that valuable data to power their business. And this is the deal we've all kind of agreed to without even realizing it. It's the engine that runs Netflix, Spotify, Uber, you name it. They get to learn from our habits, and we get to feel like they don't know it's us specifically. But what if that feeling of safety is built on a total house of cards? So let's get into it. The anonymity promise. Why do we buy into this so easily? We're going to dig into why we've all been so quick to believe our data is safe just because it has that little anonymous label stamped on it. And the first big crack in this whole promise, it actually came from a really famous case involving one of the biggest streaming giants out there, Netflix. Okay, so get this. Way back in 2006, Netflix put out this massive data set of movie ratings for a competition. They stripped out all the names, all the personal info. It was just user IDs, movie titles, and timestamps, supposedly totally anonymous. But then some clever researchers at the University of Texas had an idea. They just took that anonymous Netflix data and compared it to public movie reviews on IMDb. And it turns out if you rate a few obscure movies on both platforms, bingo, they could link the anonymous Netflix user right back to a real person's IMDb profile. And here's the part that should really give you chills. Nobody hacked Netflix. There was no data breach. It was just correlation. It was connecting the dots. And think about what that means. Suddenly, your private viewing history, which could reveal anything from your political views to your personal life, is connected back to your public name. This isn't just about movies anymore. Now, that Netflix thing was a huge wake-up call. But that was ages ago in tech years. Today, the amount of data being collected on us is on a whole other level. And as it turns out, the unique patterns of your daily life can be a bigger identifier than your actual name. Let's jump forward to 2018. The New York Times got a hold of a data set that tracked 20 million supposedly anonymized smartphones. 20 million. Can you even wrap your head around that? That's like tracking the entire population of Florida. And even with no names attached, reporters could easily follow a single dot on a map, from a person's house, to their office, to a doctor's appointment. You get the picture. And it's not just your location. It gets way more personal. In 2016, the Australian government released medical records for almost 3 million patients. They were de-identified, of course, but researchers pretty quickly proved they could unmask patients just by combining their birth date, their postcode, and their gender, and then matching it to public records. So here's where the magic trick, or maybe the con, happens. On the left, you see what gets removed, the obvious stuff. But on the right, that's the stuff that gets left behind. These are like digital breadcrumbs. And sure, your postcode alone doesn't identify you, but your postcode plus your exact birth date plus your gender. Suddenly, you might be the only person in that dataset who fits that unique description.
Which all leads to a really stark conclusion. Anonymity wasn't broken in these cases. The truth is, it was never really there to begin with. It was an illusion all along.
So, if it's this easy to figure out who people are, why on earth do companies keep using this obviously flawed system? What's going on here? Well, it all comes down to money and legal loopholes. It's time to talk about the corporate fig leaf. There's this fantastic term for it, compliance theater. It's the act of looking like you care about privacy and security to check a box for regulators without actually providing it. Think of it like a restaurant that hangs a grade A health inspection sign in the window, but the kitchen is an absolute disaster. It looks good on the surface, but it's not the real story.
And the playbook for this is surprisingly simple. You can break it down into 4 steps. First, you collect just a staggering amount of personal data. Second, you run it through some basic anonymization process. Third, and this is the most important step, you slap the label anonymous on it. And boom, step 4, you can now sell it, trade it, and make money off of it with way fewer legal restrictions.
And hey, this isn't just a theory. An internal memo from a huge telecom company that later went public spelled this out. They knew that as long as the data was labeled anonymous, even if they knew it wasn't truly anonymous, they could sell it much more freely. This wasn't an accident. It was a deliberate corporate strategy.
And this is the giant loophole. Big privacy laws like Europe's GDPR have super strict rules for handling personal data, but they're way more relaxed about data that's considered anonymous. So, by using this label, companies can basically drive a truck full of our data right through these regulatory gaps. And that is how we end up in a world where these companies know more about us than our families do, all while claiming they respect our privacy. Okay, so I know, the picture I've painted so far is pretty grim. But it's not hopeless. There are absolutely ways to fix this broken system. So let's talk about what a safer future could actually look like.
Which brings us right back to where we started. After all of this, what's the answer? Does anonymized data really truly mean private? The answer is a pretty clear no. Not by default, anyway. And honestly, not very often. Anonymization isn't some magic privacy wand you can just wave over a dataset. It's a tool, and it's a tool that's being misused as a get-out-of-jail-free card for privacy responsibilities. So what's the path forward? Well, first, we need stronger laws. Laws with actual teeth that punish companies when their anonymous data gets easily de-anonymized. Second, we need clear technical standards. We need a real definition for what anonymous even means, because right now, it's the Wild West. Third, we need to audit the shadowy world of data brokers who buy and sell this stuff. And finally, maybe the most important thing, we need a cultural shift toward data dignity, remembering that behind every single one of these data points is a real human being. And that leaves us with one last kind of radical thought to chew on. In this world that is just completely obsessed with collecting every last bite of data on all of us, what if the most powerful, most radical act of privacy is to just not collect the data in the first place?